Story 1. My mother works at a quite popular building supply store as a cashier. In her years working for the company, she adapted rapidly to inconsideracy and mistreatment by the clientele, co-workers, and her superiors. However, this day made her reach a boiling point. In her many days of work, I went with her to know how she works and how the environment is. I'm seated next to her playing on my phone. She was chatting with a nice man about the direction the business was shifting to because of the pandemic. The man was without a mask in hand. In come Karen. Excuse me. Why aren't you wearing a mask? Don't you see there are hundreds of people here that could be exposed? He gently reciprocates with our, at first, caring client, responding, I'm sorry for the inconvenience, ma'am. However, our supervisors haven't given us protection masks yet. Kind of the employees need to bring themselves. Well, why don't you bring your own mask then? You need to protect the customers. I don't have the money needed to buy one of those, so I'm forced to work without it. Kind of unfair, don't you think? Karen, clearly posing the I don't want to hear any more of this face, lends a response. I don't care, that's against the sanitary law of this country. I need you to get out of this store, or I'll have to call Anvisa. Anvisa is the public organ that regulates the hygiene and safety for the population here in Brazil, kind of like the FDA in the US, or the NHS in the UK. My mother, clearly dejected by our woman's regards, catches in. Is everything all right here? There is. This employee isn't using a mask. It's against the sanitation laws of this nation. If you're his supervisor, fire him immediately, or I'll alert Anvisa. Ma'am, you're clearly overreacting. Please step aside and scan your items. Our entitled person is clearly agitated and irritated by my mother's comments. Nevertheless, she continues pressing the faculty, even drawing other clients' attention to her, until she drops the golden blow. Ugh, I don't know what is wrong with you people nowadays. Why can't black people be decently concerned for others? We saved you from serfdom, and this the treatment you repay us. Absolutely disgusting. The sad part is that our ancestors would probably side with her if they heard these words. Nonetheless, this generation isn't, and I'm glad for that. My mother steps in. Okay, ma'am, you're out of line. You're disrupting the people's peace here, and if you don't retire, I'm going to alert the manager. There are other customers without masks, and you are making a ruckus for merely racism. Please leave. My mom was always the outgoing and challenging type, standing for others when she feels something's wrong, even if she's a mere employee. Definitely one of the traits I really like about her. Oh, so you aren't a supervisor? I lost my time then. Seriously, what is wrong with you? Racial slur? I'm going to call the cops. This is absurd. I'm a lawyer. At this point, the verbal aggression evolved to physical, as Karen pulled the nice man to demonstrate superiority. My mom pulled her away from him. Before anything escalated, the supervisor came. What's the matter? The supervisor asked. This employee isn't wearing a mask. This is forbidden by Anvisa. Ma'am, calm down. Let's settle this discussion responsibly. Oh, and she intervened. Pointing at my mom, she pushed me. If this is how you treat your clients, I'm going to call Anvisa and the cops to arrest her. At this point, the supervisor failed to calm the woman down as she fumes outside, possibly calling the cops. My mom begs me to leave the store, as the police here isn't one of the best in the world, and she was scared something bad might happen to me if I stay. Reluctantly, I did so. At the end, it's your classic entitled people stories cliché. She tries to do a false testimony and fails because of the many rebuttals that destroy her vision completely. She got arrested for racial injury, violence incitement, physical aggression, and many other charges that I'm not in the mood to say. My mother got a suspension of her work for a period, but at least she's fine. Story 2. For some context, my dad lives alone next door to me. My mom left him a couple of years prior, and it was a very rough separation. Both parents believe the other one is out to get them, but in reality, they do not want anything to do with each other. Also, my dad runs a business from home, and has security cameras everywhere that cover every entrance to both of our homes. This detail will be referenced later. One day, my dad called and asked if I could stop by his house and take a look at one of his dogs, Samson, because he was not looking well. I walked over, and it was clear at first sight that the dog had mange. I recommended going to the veterinarian to see what they suggested for proper treatment. My dad replied, "It may look like that, but this is clearly an acid burn." At this point, I was confused, so I dared to ask, "Why do you think this?" My dad began explaining how my mom had obviously hired someone to come to the house and spray acid on the dog in an attempt to make his life miserable. I then asked, "Did the cameras catch anything?" No, they didn't. At this point, I was trying hard not to laugh as I asked, "So what you're telling me is that some acid-wielding ninja somehow drove to our house and remember, we live in the middle of nowhere, avoided waking either of us up, bypassed all 10 security cameras or even more, got into the dog's lot, which is tiny, and managed to spray acid on Samson without getting bitten by Biscuit, your other dog who is very aggressive toward strangers, and then got out without being detected?" He adamantly responded with yes, clearly not catching my sarcasm. He then said, "But I can't prove it. Can you check the cameras to see if you can find anything or do some searching around the house? Also, can you try and get your mother to admit that she did this?" I sighed. Ignoring how unlikely it is that someone in our area even has the ability to do that, how could Mom, a person who took 12 years to learn how to do laundry, and that's a true story, find and hire someone to spray acid on the one outside dog you have that she actually likes? He looked at me as if I were the one being unreasonable and said, "You just don't understand your mother. She would do this to make it look like she didn't do it." It was as if he believed Mom was some kind of malicious genius. Malicious, yes, genius, no, and I might share some stories about her another time. I was starting to get a headache from this conversation, so I simply suggested, "Then why don't you take him to the vet and see what they recommend for treatment?" Dad nodded. "Good idea." But he still insisted I spend hours trying to find proof of ninjas that I knew didn't exist. With him, I choose my battles because he can be a real pain to argue with. He is very childish at times. After I spent an hour disagreeing with him about the ninja, he stomped his feet and began insisting I check all the camera angles to improve security. Luckily, that was easy since there were so many cameras covering every driveway and every entrance used to get to his house. They also cover my driveway, but my doors and yard are not in the line of sight, and I made sure of that. I did, however, win the argument that I did not have to check for ninja footprints. Yes, he actually asked me to. A few days later, Dad finally took Samson to the veterinarian. The veterinarian diagnosed mange. I knew this because the medicine Dad brought home was specifically for mange. Dad then called me over. He was visibly upset and said, "The veterinarian doesn't know what he's talking about. This is clearly acid." I sighed and replied, "Well, regardless, the medicine should help him get better, and you can check the cameras to see if any more ninjas show up." Samson healed up within days, and so far, there have been no more signs of a ninja attack. Even now, 2 years later, Dad still occasionally asks if Mom has admitted to hiring someone to do it. Story 3. A little bit of backstory here. When I was younger, we would celebrate either of my grandparents' birthdays by spending most of the day there, have dinner together, and then go home. Neither of my grandparents were exactly great cooks, so they would always order dinner for the occasion. The grandchildren would get French fries, and the adults usually got Chinese food. As a kid, I certainly was not complaining. Now, something you need to know is that my dad has 2 sisters, my aunts. I absolutely love his youngest sister and have always had a close bond with her. There is a large age difference between myself and her children, so I have babysat them from the time they were 6 months old. My dad's middle sister is a different story altogether. To use a description my British friends will be familiar with, they are scum class. Their house was always filthy to the point where there was a stack of used diapers bunched under a sofa, cigarette butts on the floor, clothes not being washed. You get the picture. Now, for some reason, she spoiled her children absolutely rotten, perhaps to compensate for the fact that she wouldn't offer them basic hygiene. Anything those children wanted was handed to them on a dinged and dusty silver platter. Now for the story. We were celebrating my granddad's birthday. Enter cast. Me, good guy granddad, entitled aunt spawn. I am about 12 years old at the time and the oldest of all the grandchildren. This means I have been granted a coveted position at the adult table whilst the children play in the front room. My granddad is discussing what we should do for food this particular time. As per usual, the Chinese takeout menu makes an appearance. Me, feeling particularly responsible and eager to prove I belong at the adult table, offer to take down the orders. The adults in the family rattle off their order one by one, and I make sure to diligently note down what everyone wants. I am not going to lie, 12-year-old me felt powerful. Next, it's time to take the orders for the children. I ask my granddad if I can go ask them myself and take it down. He gives me a big grin and ushers me along. Now I set to the task with the fervor of a missionary who has just landed on the shores of a heathen land. I ask my brothers and each of my cousins, yes, that includes the evil kid, what they would like for dinner. Now this gets noted down neatly, even including the name of each person behind their specific order. I ran back to my granddad with a sense of pride, as if I had finished my first novel rather than wrote a glorified shopping list. He runs through the list with me and nods approvingly. He asks if I want to be the one who places the order, and boy do I. As I reach for the phone, my entitled aunt decides this is her moment to shine. She yanks my carefully curated list out of my hand and, not so quickly, reads through it. Moments later, I receive a glare that could have made Ho Kai Min whimper. Apparently, I have made a grievous mistake. Entitled aunt, why is there only 5 portions of fries on here? Confused, I reply, because there are only 5 children who are going to eat fries. You must be stupid, can you not count? I can count, there's me, both of my brothers and your children. What about your youngest cousins? Well, one of them is 4 months old and can't have solids, and the other one doesn't like fries, so he is eating something different. She rolls her eyes and snorts with derision. What about my babies? 1 portion of fries is not going to be enough. These are adult portions. They always give us way too much food, and then we have to throw it away after dinner. At this point, she tries to snatch the phone away from me so she can make the call herself. This was her big mistake. I was, and to this day still am, a particularly stubborn person. Couple that with that fact that I did not have a lot going for me as a child, but I had my brain, so insulting my intelligence was not something I took kindly to. I duck under her arm and race to the other side of the table, snatching the list as I go. Me, I am not ordering more food, this is enough. Give me that list, you little brat. Do you want to spoil my father's birthday and make people go hungry? I am not ordering more food, this is enough. This back and forth continued in the same sort of way for another 15 minutes, with my granddad looking on rather bemused, shooting me to occasional wink. Meanwhile, my aunt is getting more and more irate as I calmly keep telling her no. By the end, she is screaming, her face is red and blotched with a matching vein ready to burst on the forehead. So I do the only logical thing. I run into the bathroom with my entitled aunt in hot pursuit. At this moment, it has become my sole mission to sabotage this woman. I lock the door and dial the number for the takeaway place. She is screaming, demanding I open the door right now. To which I reply, I am on the phone. I, loudly and very clearly, state my order to the takeaway place and give them my granddad's name, whilst she is banging on the door. When I am finished, I unlock the door and walk past her with a smirk that split my face in half. I go back to my granddad and hand him the phone, delivering the message that dinner will be ready to collect it in about 15 minutes. He ruffles my hair and tells me, "Thanks, sweetheart." Entitled aunt, who has stuck to my heels like a bad smell, looks at this, loses whatever was left of her composure, starts sobbing loudly. She complains to my granddad about what a horrible child I am, and that he should call the takeaway place back and rectify my order. My granddad is done with this in about 2 seconds. He levels her with a look and calmly states, "You have lost in more ways than one. Get yourself together or go home." She locked herself in an upstairs bedroom for the rest of the evening and refused to speak to anyone. Food arrived about 20 minutes later, and as predicted, we had more than enough to feed everyone. Story 4. Hello everyone, and welcome to another unusual, difficult neighbor story. To start this off, I have some unconventional pets: tarantulas, snakes, a spoiled mouse, and some more conventional pets such as cats and dogs. Because of this, I've faced quite a bit of pushback from entitled people. However, this most recent interaction takes the prize. I was out walking one of my dogs when I heard screaming coming from a few houses down. When I got closer, I realized it was my new neighbor yelling at Ray, the pest control worker. This woman was a short Hispanic lady with brightly colored short hair. Spit was practically flying from her mouth. A young, bored-looking boy stood in the doorway of the house. When Ray spotted me, he quickly waved me over. "Look, miss, Tex here can tell you we're just walking around the house to do pest control. We were hired by the Homeowners Association," Ray practically pleaded. "Hi," I said. "Ray really does work for the Homeowners Association as part of their pest management service. However, if you don't feel comfortable with Ray or his company being around your house, you can just tell him to mark you down as a skip." I shrugged, understanding that not everyone is comfortable with people walking around their homes. "Yes, I don't want those people walking around my house. My sweet baby was playing outside, and he scared him," the woman yelled. Ray looked relieved for a split second. "Yes, ma'am, we can certainly put you on the skip list. Or even as a partial skip like Tex does," Ray offered. "A partial skip?" the woman asked, confused. "Yep. I have some exotic pets that are sensitive to the spray they use, so they skip the window to their room," I told her with a smile. "Exotic pets?" the boy asked, perking up. I smiled and went into full teacher mode. I explained that I have many different kinds of pets and that I take in a lot of specialty animals people purchase before doing proper research. Since the global health crisis began, I've been getting a lot of animals from people who moved back in with their parents and couldn't bring their pets with them. The more I talked, the more excited the boy became, and the more horrified his mother looked. "Wait," she interrupted. "What kind of monsters are you keeping?" "Excuse me? They aren't monsters. They're just wonderfully uncommon pets," I replied, slightly annoyed. "Snakes, spiders, they are monsters. How can you keep them?" "Honestly, I would just burn the whole house to the ground and take the loss," she screeched. Now, something you should know is that when I was a child, I actually did experience a house fire. Both my parents were badly burned and spent months in the hospital. My brother and I had nowhere to go, as none of my family members could or would take us in. The firefighters ended up cleaning out a back room at the station and letting us live there for a month before my mom was released from the hospital. So, the threat of going through that again shook me to my core. That kind of joke isn't funny. You wouldn't say that to someone who owned a dog or a cat, so don't say it to me. I've been through the aftermath of losing a house to a fire. It's not something to use as an empty threat," I told her firmly. She sniffed and tossed her nose into the air. "Who said it was an empty threat?" she replied sharply. Everyone froze. I can't imagine what my face must have looked like. Ray glanced between us and took a step back. "It had better be," I replied, "because I have enough cameras that alert me if anyone steps onto my property. I also have enough means to defend myself to bring down a small army. Take from that what you will." I smiled thinly, my tone serious. "Was that a threat?" she gasped. "As long as you don't plan to follow through with yours, I won't be forced to follow through with mine," I said, still holding that sharp smile. She turned on her heel and stormed up the driveway, leaving her now wide-eyed son behind. As she slammed the door, Ray flinched. Well, that wasn't how I expected this day to go, he sighed tiredly. I just nodded. The boy looked at me shyly before asking, "Could I hold one of your snakes and see your spiders?" "Talk to your dad when he gets home. If he says yes, you can come over and hang out," I told him, still trying to calm myself down. I know I probably didn't handle the situation in the best way, but when she started talking about burning my house down, my mind went straight back to the night I tried to drag my autistic brother out of a burning building unsure if my parents were still alive. I could almost smell the burning wood and feel the burns on my back from shielding my brother. The fear of that happening again was overwhelming. Update: the boy came over later and had a wonderful time. He fell in love with some of the snakes, and his dad asked if he could help care for them to see if maybe he could get one in the future. So now, he's fostering Najash, the corn snake. Story 5. Okay, so technically, I don't work with this company, but I volunteer to help my boyfriend with his second job. This job is picking up trash at a few apartment complexes and taking the trash to either the compactor or the dumpster, depending on the complex. There's just a few rules different for each complex. This particular complex, the rules are very simple. We don't take untied bags, quick fix, and he and I are nice enough to where we just tie them. We don't take any bags over till to 50 pounds or so. We don't take furniture or anything of the sort, plastic laundry bins, chairs, machinery, etc. We don't take boxes unless they're broken down flat, and we don't take any open glass. Very simple rules that I think most would be able to understand. Apparently, this guy can't understand these rules. I've had to deal with this guy leaving bags of his dog's poop on his porch outside of his trash bag to where I have to open his trash, or his neighbors because this guy ties his trash bags tighter than a surgeon ties stitches together, and individually put each little baggie into the larger trash bag. Not even considerate enough to put them into a small plastic bag like a Walmart bag and have them separate. Just individual baggies on the porch. Well, a couple weeks ago, his bag was well over 50 pounds. I could barely lift it an inch off the ground and was not going to attempt to drag it down the stairs and risk breaking the bag. So I took the little baggies and put it in the neighbor's trash bag and took those bags to the truck so we could take it to the compactor. As I'm walking back to get more trash, I pile it together to make it easier. The guy comes out of his apartment and sees the bag still on his porch. Obviously upset, he takes the bag down the stairs and out to where the truck is. "No problem. Thanks for getting the bag, I couldn't." As I'm walking back with more bags to the truck, I see he placed it on the curb next to the truck. Now, I could understand if the truck just looked like some random truck and he didn't want to put trash in the back of a truck, not knowing if it was the right one or not. But it was very obviously full of trash bags he had seen me put in there. No big deal. I call my boyfriend and tell him there's a bag on the curb that he'll have to put in the truck since I can't lift it. Fast forward to earlier this week. I see a bag on his porch and hop up the steps to grab it. 2 bags, no biggie, and a box. An open box, full of glass bottles, which we don't pick up for safety reasons, and because of ruling. We don't take boxes that aren't broken down since someone could confuse a package for a box full of trash or claim that if they stole a package. So I take the bags and leave the box. Don't even touch it. So I take the bags down to the truck and continue with my half of the complex. As I'm looping back through to see if I missed any bags or if any bags were taken out after I came through, the guy runs into me. Now, he's only seen me as a trash person. I don't even live in the same town as this complex, so that's all I am to him, a stupid trash collector. No offense meant to any trash collectors reading this. "Why do you keep skipping my apartment?" "I'm sorry?" I said. "Why do you keep skipping my apartment? You've done this multiple times. I'm going to contact your boss if this happens again." "Sir, I can guarantee that I have not skipped your apartment." "You have. This is the 2nd or 3rd time you've left my trash at my door." "Sir, the only things I leave at the doors are the things I am not allowed to pick up per our ruling." "That's nonsense. I've read the rules for trash, and all it says is to put it on the front door for pickup, and that we don't get pickup on weekends. If you would like for me to list the rules for pickup, I can, because you seem to be missing some of our rules. I don't need you to tell me what I already know. I'd just like to remind you, we are not allowed to take any bags over till the 50 pounds, any open boxes, any open glass, or any furniture. All trash must either be in bags or boxes that are broken down, and all bags must be tied. No, you take the trash. That's it. Now go up there and take that trash off my doorstep before I call the complex manager and get in contact with your boss. Well, good luck getting in touch with the boss. He's currently at the hospital, so he won't be taking any calls. Stop making things up and go pick up that trash. That's your job. Go take the trash. At this point, a couple people have either come out of their apartment or opened their porch door to see why the hell this man is yelling at me. Sir, if you would like the trash that remains on your front step to go to the compactor, unfortunately, because of the rules I have stated to you, you will have to take it to the compactor yourself. He starts yelling at me again, which, frankly, I just tuned out, decided I don't have to deal with this, and just smiled at him. After a few minutes of him yelling at me and telling me to wipe that retarded grin off my face, one of the people who had their porch door open told him to shut the hell up because it was past 9 p.m. and people were trying to sleep, and that he should be grateful that someone even picks up his trash anyway, and he could at least be courteous enough to trash in bags and not leave it there on the porch. He gets pissed that someone took my side and huffed off up his stairs, picks the box of glass bottles up, and throws it over the handrail. Yeah, no. I walk away and continue with my checks, after thanking the person who took my side, of course. I'm almost certain that man was drunk, but even so I didn't want to make anything worse than it was causing my boyfriend to possibly lose this job. Story 6. My 23-year-old husband's parents are a 51-year-old man and a 46-year-old woman. Together, they have 5 children. My husband, 26-year-old man, we live separately from them in a different place. A 20-year-old woman. A 17-year-old woman. A 15-year-old boy. A 13-year-old girl. All the younger children still live with their parents and depend on them. They recently divorced. Although the divorce was the result of both their actions, they managed to hide most of their marital problems from the children. It was a shock to everyone when my husband's mother filed for divorce. Only 3 months later, she married a 26-year-old man who works at the same place of employment as she does. This marriage came about as a result of an affair she had been having for years. The 17-year-old daughter recently got her first job. She has been homeschooled her entire life, and I put that in quotation marks because her education was never really enforced. It was essentially another form of neglect. The father worked as much as possible to provide, as times have been financially difficult. The mother did not want to take the time to assist with schooling, as she had been planning her escape and pursuit of financial independence for years. Even now, financial responsibility is not something she consistently practices. She left the children to handle their own schooling. A proper homeschooling environment involves parental assistance, guidance, and encouragement. Without that, the 17-year-old has little to no real-life experience or social skills beyond her family. They were always financially struggling until recently, but even now, things are still not great. Unlike my husband, who essentially became the third parent in the home, more like the Cinderella figure raising his younger siblings almost entirely on his own. With his father constantly working and his mother emotionally absent, my husband had to take control of his own education. He recognized early on that he would need to do it himself, eventually enrolling himself in public school due to the neglect and his desire for a life and friends outside the home. At 16, he moved out for similar reasons: rebellion, not respecting his parents, and a strong desire for independence. Looking back, it is incredibly unfair that he had to take on such responsibilities at such a young age. When he moved out, there was little they could do to make him return, as he quickly obtained a car, his own apartment, and financial stability. Even law enforcement saw it as a positive step toward independence and stability. The problem recently: my husband's life experiences have been vastly different from those of his younger siblings. mainly because of his role in his original household. The 17-year-old daughter, after earning her General Educational Development JED certificate, got her first job. She had also been in a long-distance relationship for years. However, that relationship recently ended after she met someone new at work, someone she had previously said she was not interested in because of his life choices and appearance. This new person is a 20-year-old man with a troubling history, including driving under the influence, possession of illegal substances, and other similar offenses dating back to before he turned 18 and continuing into earlier this year. He currently lives with his father, who resides very close to her primary home. Recently, she lost her virginity to him, something we know because her parents found a morning after pill in the trash. She has been spending late nights out with him, making questionable decisions. Her parents are completely disengaged. I truly believe her mother is simply waiting for her to turn 18 so she will no longer feel responsible for her. This is evident from her recent behavior, as it mirrors how she reacted when my husband left home. The 46-year-old mother is marrying someone much younger, not paying the mortgage, and despite the divorce maxing out her ex-husband's credit cards, she seems to be trying to hit the reset button on her life. She has even made comments about wishing her youngest child had never been born, so she could have escaped her marriage sooner and built the life she wanted. But the truth is, once you become a parent, your children's needs must always come first. On top of that, she gave up her pets, which we took in, because her new husband is afraid of dogs and does not like them. She has said that since her 17-year-old daughter will be 18 in just a few months, what can I do? She is sending her 15-year-old son to live primarily and permanently with his father because she claims she cannot control him. Most recently, she announced that, due to her 17-year-old daughter's behavior, she will also be sending her away to live with a trusted family member several hours away. While this relative is in a much better position to care for her, the decision still feels like abandonment. The 17-year-old has openly stated that the moment she gets the chance, she is going to run away, whether from here or from her new living arrangement to be with her new boyfriend. She insists they are in love. Now, my own childhood was far from perfect, but my mother still made an effort. I can relate to trying to find love and attention elsewhere when you are feeling neglected. I, too, acted out at times, but I respected my mother and never felt the urge to run away. In the 17-year-old's case, I believe she is acting out because she feels abandoned and disrespects her mother. She may be setting herself up for significant loss, as she is searching for love in places that may not be safe or healthy. Being sent away could deepen her sense of rejection, especially since her mother is unable to manage her own life, let alone guide her daughters. I know it is illegal for a 20-year-old man to harbor a 17-year-old minor, especially when that man already has a criminal record and is likely on probation at the moment. I do not believe he is responsible enough to make such a life-altering decision like moving her in and caring for her despite his claims that he can. We have his phone number, full name, address, and his father's information since they live together. However, I am not the primary caregiver for the 17-year-old. She and her siblings spend a lot of time at our place because here they can have fun, eat well, and most importantly feel seen, cared for, and not neglected or pushed aside. I am exhausted from hearing people say that their parents are doing the best they can because based on what I have seen, they are not. The 51-year-old father is working incredibly hard to pay off debt, but due to his job, he travels often and is absent most of the time. I do not entirely blame him for this, but it does create a significant gap in who is actually present to care for the children. Consistent and urgent needs often fall on other people. Recently, my husband and I took the younger kids to school orientations. The parents have finally acknowledged that they are not providing adequate homeschooling and have decided to send the younger children to public school, a good decision in theory, as they have not been properly educated at home. But when we checked, we discovered they were not even enrolled in classes. Last year, these kids spent most of the first day of school sitting in the counselor's office trying to get their schedules set up. The parents' lack of involvement in this process is a clear failure. I feel stuck. I want to help these children have a better life so badly, but their parents are far more focused on finding new spouses and winning the divorce than on making sure their kids are safe, loved, and cared for, which should always be the number one priority. For example, they should be making sure the mortgage is paid, creating a stable living situation, and guiding their children through this difficult time. Instead, the 17-year-old's recent behavior clearly shows that her mother is just waiting until she turns 18 to wash her hands of the situation. But in the meantime, she could easily make a decision that changes her life forever, such as becoming pregnant with her 20-year-old boyfriend's child, because she lacks the life experience and social understanding to distinguish between healthy and unhealthy relationships. Right now, she is acting out and avoiding her parents, and they seem equally uninterested in dealing with her. I am not judging her, I simply want her to be able to make decisions from a place of maturity, not rebellion or fear. She is intelligent, decisive, and entrepreneurial, and I want her to pursue the things she loves without being forced to depend on people who cannot care for her properly, whether that is her parents or this new boyfriend. I am deeply worried that she will run away and later regret it for the rest of her life. I know it is illegal for a 20-year-old man to harbor a 17-year-old minor, especially when that man already has a criminal record and is likely on probation at the moment. I do not believe he is responsible enough to make such a life-altering decision like moving her in and caring for her despite his claims that he can. We have his phone number, full name, address, and his father's information since they live together. However, I am not the primary caregiver for the 17-year-old. She and her siblings spend a lot of time at our place because here they can have fun, eat well, and most importantly feel seen, cared for, and not neglected or pushed aside. I am exhausted from hearing people say that their parents are doing the best they can, because based on what I have seen, they are not. The 51-year-old father is working incredibly hard to pay off debt, but due to his job, he travels often and is absent most of the time. I do not entirely blame him for this, but it does create a significant gap in who is actually present to care for the children. Consistent and urgent needs often fall on other people. Recently, my husband and I took the younger kids to school orientations. The parents have finally acknowledged that they are not providing adequate homeschooling and have decided to send the younger children to public school, a good decision in theory, as they have not been properly educated at home. But when we checked, we discovered they were not even enrolled in classes. Last year, these kids spent most of the first day of school sitting in the counselor's office trying to get their schedules set up. The parents' lack of involvement in this process is a clear failure. I feel stuck. I want to help these children have a better life so badly, but their parents are far more focused on finding new spouses and winning the divorce than on making sure their kids are safe, loved, and cared for, which should always be the number one priority. For example, they should be making sure the mortgage is paid, creating a stable living situation, and guiding their children through this difficult time. Instead, the 17-year-old's recent behavior clearly shows that her mother is just waiting until she turns 18 to wash her hands of the situation. But in the meantime, she could easily make a decision that changes her life forever, such as becoming pregnant with her 20-year-old boyfriend's child, because she lacks the life experience and social understanding to distinguish between healthy and unhealthy relationships. Right now, she is acting out and avoiding her parents, and they seem equally uninterested in dealing with her. I am not judging her, I simply want her to be able to make decisions from a place of maturity, not rebellion or fear. She is intelligent, decisive, and entrepreneurial, and I want her to pursue the things she loves without being forced to depend on people who cannot care for her properly, whether that is her parents or this new boyfriend. I am deeply worried that she will run away and later regret it for the rest of her life.